Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We got a special guest today, Karen Jones, J6, Grannie, Kill Tony legend, as he said. How's it going?
It's going well.
You've been on Drinking Bros before. You've never been on this show.
No, I have not, but I do watch it.
Yeah, thank you. Doing my best over here, writing a lot of stuff. So let's start. Let's get into it with you. Where did you grow up? Where are you from originally?
I was born in a place called Taft, California.
Taft? Is
Yes.
it named after the president?
I think so. It was originally called Moron. And for whatever reason, they decided to change the name to Taft. Probably the most notable thing about the town is Robin Williams and Kurt Russell made a movie there, a Ron Shelton sports movie called Best of Times. And it's one of the few movies that Robin Williams made that isn't one that people recognize, but it's about the Bakersfield-Taft football rivalry. Another thing important about Taft is that we were three-peat national champions in what was first called junior college football and then, city college. But we had a incredible football team for this little tiny oil field town.
Why do you think that is?
Oh, I know why it is. My dad was the founder of the Black Gold Club, and my father was an interesting guy and always thinking, lots of ideas. And he put together a recruiting team, and on their own dime, they flew all over the country and recruited people to come to Taft College that were people that would not have went to college otherwise, a lot of inner city people. And it was great for the town. It was great for them. Free dorm, free books, and a large number, I can't say the percentage, but then went on to four-year schools. So it was life-changing for all involved. It was great.
So I'm reading some of the history here. According to a display at the West Kern Oil Museum, local residents asked the South Pacific Railroad if the station could be named Morrow when the rails arrived at about 1900, but a railroad official declined because the name would be too easily confused with the coastal town of Morro Bay. Instead, the railroad directed the station to be called Moron, a word which as yet had no association with the lack of intelligence. This Spanish word for hillcock or a small hill. That's what moron actually means. That's really funny. I've never heard that story before. And yes, it was changed to Taft in honor of William Taft. Very interesting.
It's a weird little town.
Yeah, it is.
It's outside of Bakersfield, about maybe 30, 45 minutes. And it's had some remarkable things happen there. Not just that movie, but it was a really good place to grow up. And now it's a really ugly, sad place. But it was a Standard Oil town. It was like living on the company farm when I was growing up. My father was a Standard Oil accountant, and we lived on an oil lease. And, everything was 11C this, 11C that after the oil lease.
Is there any weird shit that goes on there?
Oh, man, I was falling asleep night before last. And it was one of those women's murder channel kind of Netflix things on. And all of a sudden I heard the name Michael Riconosciuto. And I just woke right up and I'm like, what the F? I hadn't heard that name in a while. This guy is one of the biggest, I don't know if he ever really was CIA, I doubt it, but he was a con artist. And he worked in our next door neighbor town, Maricopa. And if you wiki search him, it says he worked in a mine. Yeah, a cat litter mine.
What the fuck?
They mine cat litter.
Wait, what is it? What's cat litter made from that they have to mine it?
Some kind of weird clay.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the interesting thing about that mine is we didn't have a big heroin problem in Taft, but all the people who did heroin worked out at that mine, and Michael Riconosciuto was their boss. And he's been involved in all kinds of crazy stuff. And he was sleeping with a few of my girlfriends who all believed his stuff. And I'm like, no, that's just too crazy. There have been a few things like that just, when I meet people and I tell them from Taft, They almost always have a Taft story
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Well, there's a small federal prison there now, and it's where Jordan Belfort from Wolf of Wall Street did his time. Interestingly, I didn't know that there was a prison there. There's a lot of federal prisons in weird small towns across the country. So, you grew up in Taft. What'd you do after high school?
I didn't go to high school.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's why I know so much.
Yeah. What do you mean? Explain.
Well, I went to ninth grade, but at the beginning of 10th grade, I got pregnant. And this was back in the olden days where pregnant girls weren't allowed to go to school. And then my parents put me in a group home in Montecito, which is south of Santa Barbara, Children's Home Society, with the plan of me putting the baby up for adoption and then going to vocational school. But I got kicked out of the group home. And anyway, that was a pretty messy time in my life. But it meant that I didn't graduate from high school. And I ended up running away from home. After I got kicked out of the group home, my parents had a plan B that I didn't like. And so I ran away, and I wound up living in Oakland at the Salvation Army. And I went to a skill center in Berkeley. I like to say I got my degree at Berkeley, but a GED. And then from there, I went to a adult school and got a license. It's a vocational license, a nursing license for psychiatric hospitals. So I worked in the psychiatric system in California.
Doing what?
Where we were called psychiatric technicians, but we were like the LVNs. We gave the shots.
Oh,
We
okay. So you were
did the
doing
write-ups.
intake or any of that? You were doing
Oh, I
treatment?
did a lot of intake. Yeah.
Oh, so you do both. You do the treatment. Obviously, there's psychiatrists who do that part, but you're doing the. This is before Reagan got rid of all the psychiatric hospitals.
Well, that was a very slow process. So
Yeah,
Reagan
it started under, was it JFK where that started, or who was it? Or Eisenhower.
It was a trend because of Snake Pit, but the story is always behind what's actually happening. So mental hospitals were actually very nice when I started doing this in the mid 1970s. I mean, it's hard to convince people of this, but the homeless people today are really just living in an open air mental hospital, and they are not well people.
Yeah, I mean, they're shitting on the street. You know, they're crazy no matter where you put them.
Right.
know
Giving
what I
them a
mean?
house will just give them a shitty house
Yeah,
full of all kinds of crazy things. So a lot of these people are people that would have been living in a state hospital. I worked at a county hospital initially during my training, and then I also rotated through some state hospitals. But depending on where I was working, I would do initial intakes, and I loved that. They were called, probably most of the time, it was called a psychiatric social history. And then I would go into a multidisciplinary meeting where there were the psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, registered nurses, and present the patient, and then they would all, do their thing. I was at the lowest level of the licensed staff in these situations, which was good because, the further you went up the ladder, the nuttier the people were. Psychiatrists are a pretty nutty bunch.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a lot of people get into that profession because they're trying to fix themselves, and then they realize they can't.
Yeah, if you meet somebody that has a degree in psychology, I would probably go the other way.
I don't mind the degree. The degree's fine because, that's a research thing. But if the people that I've met that are actively in the field, most of them have, the ones that I know that are actually good at this have left the industry and started their own private practice where they just talk to people. Because inside of the bounds of the private practice, it's just a pharmaceutical scam for the most part, right?
Right.
It's old school, like Freudian psychology, which is you're fucked up and somebody else is responsible and we have to deal with that for the rest of your life. Whereas Adlerian psychology is you're fine. Just polish off the rough edges. By the way, it's your responsibility to do that. That's the differences in the two early 20th century psychologies. One, I think, is clearly better than the other, right?
Right.
But for some reason, the Freud one got popular. Now, maybe it's because you could sell people marked up drugs for the rest of their life and create a customer. Whereas,
Not so much in the early days, though, and people don't appreciate. I'm glad you bring up the history of it, but psychology is a very new science. And so it was 100 years ago that Freud was doing this, maybe even a little less.
and he was prescribing cocaine too, which I don't have a problem with.
Right. That was probably one of the good things he did. And it led to his hyper focus on sexuality. And so I think that was, among the intellectual class, maybe what we might even consider elitist now, they just love talking about Freud, sex, mother.
Yeah, Jung kind of went in a different direction with social archetypes and personality archetypes and stuff like that. But, and he was Freud's, I guess you could call him his descendant. So I think the best thing we got from Freud was probably Jung, right? But the worst thing we got was Jean-Michel Foucault, who's just a fucking pedophile traveling the world pimping postmodernism. That's his whole career. And it was all based on Freudian psychology, in my opinion. That and neo-Marxism, right?
Well, and you will find, that's what I meant, that you find some really disturbed people in the industry. That's true of any industry.
Yeah.
But growing up on oil lease, there was a lot less of that. People had different problems, maybe more with temperament or alcohol, that sort of thing. But in psychiatry, I met some really interesting people, both as patients and people who worked there.
I bet, yeah. How long did you do that?
I
And
did
by the
that-
way, you've got a kid through all this?
Yes.
And you're in the Bay Area?
He was born in the Bay Area, but then we ended up making our way back down to Bakersfield.
Oh, cool. So how long did you stay in the Bay Area? Just for the education part of it?
Yeah, about a year
Where were you living when you were there?
at the Salvation
The whole
Army.
time? You didn't?
Yeah.
You never went anywhere else?
No, I was young.
Where is it in Oakland?
East Flower Street, which I didn't have bearings in. I mean, you have to remember this is so pre-internet, pre-GPS. And I didn't leave the building because I was the only white person, with the exception
then,
of
yeah.
one or two. And even back then, having an illegitimate child was uncool. Being a teen mom, nobody was trying to book me on reality TV. And even so, in black families where it was more common to have a daughter without a husband and a baby, it was a really low functioning bunch of people I was living with there, as far as, they were unwanted people in many cases. And there would be, probably in the time I lived there were probably 3 other white girls that came through. One kind of like me, a really young teenager, and another one was a older woman putting her baby up for adoption. But it was run by the Salvation Army. They wore uniforms as, Captain Hunter, Lieutenant Becky. It was pretty wild coming from a small town, which when I say oil town, this was Standard Oil right before it became Chevron. And a little town, 10,000 people in the whole area maybe.
Yeah.
And in my junior high school, the principal, who was, a smart guy, said that nationally our school, for our school size, had the highest IQ in the nation. And it sounds very, braggy of me to say that, but I was going to school with engineers, kids.
Yep.
When you worked for Standard Oil, it was a really smart bunch of people that went into petroleum. That's where the money was.
Yeah.
And so it was a crappy little town as far as dusty and ugly, but I was around some very intelligent people and a lot of people who were also, this was still at a time when people that worked in the petroleum industry, before it was called the energy industry, would go work in the Middle East in different countries. So a lot of my classmates would be gone a year or two with their families working in the Middle East. So it was really a very fun place to grow up and very free.
Yeah, you mentioned the demographics of Oakland. By the time I moved there, it had changed quite a bit. Now, it depends on where in the city you are. If you're in West Oakland, everybody's black. There's very few white people. And then far east near where the baseball stadium is, very black as well. But then the fruit belt the Fruitvale area, pretty white. Berkeley is mostly white, right? Which it's not technically Oakland, but I lived on Broadway in Piedmont, so pretty white there. It's like a white hipsters now for the most part.
Well, I would say based on your description, I was probably living near the stadium because it was 100% black, 100% ghetto. And the A's won the series the year my son was born. And so we didn't go to the game, but we went.
What year? 72?
74.
Oh, okay. They won 3 and 5 years, right? 71, 72, and 74, maybe?
I am not a baseball fan, but it was, that was the only time I would leave this big, it was a hospital that had been converted into
Oh, it's 3 in a row.
thing.
72, 73, and 74.
Okay, there you go. So it was their three-peat. It was a very big deal.
Oh, wait. No, that's not right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that is right. 72, 73, 74. Damn. Yeah. That was it was a real sports town back then. Now there's nothing left.
Right.
Like they're all
Oakland Raiders was,
Yeah, all 3 teams are gone. The Raiders are in Vegas. The A's are moving to Vegas, and technically the Warriors are in San Francisco now. They're over near the hospital, just south of the hospital in San Francisco now. It's weird.
Well, I'm not sure when you were there, but the other big event that got me, that I could leave with the Salvation Army residential people and feel safe was BART opened. And we all got to ride in the maiden voyage of the Bay Area Rapid Transit. And that's turned into, I don't even know if it still exists, but it became a very dangerous, rundown thing.
Yeah, it did. So you're back in Southern California. You work in I guess you could call it the healthcare industry
Right.
for some amount of time.
Right.
How long were you there?
Okay, I did that in various capacities. I did it full time. I met my husband in 79.
This is a guy I know?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we started living together almost immediately. My son was almost 5 at that time. And so I still worked full time, but when I started having other children with my husband, I started doing a lot of shift work because I don't like childcare.
Right.
Like raising my own kids. So I did nights, weekends, and I started branching out. I worked, in long-term lock psych locally because then I was in Bakersfield. Worked at the county emergency hospital. It was part of the regular county hospital, but it was a psych ward there. And then I also started, after kind of jumping ahead here a bit, but in my early 30s, psych was just kind of nutty as I was having small children. And I remember one night just going, what am I doing here? There's 107 people, 3 staff. These people are all crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's every night walking in through the Sally Port, the double locked door things. I was always planning what I would do if these people ever did go cuckoo's nest. Because one thing people don't know about the mentally ill that are locked up, they're generally autistic in the purest sense of the word.
Yeah.
They do not interact. It's not like cuckoo's nest where they get together and form a plan.
Yeah.
They're pretty detached from each other, but in case anything ever went wrong, I was always trying to figure out, okay, how am I getting the hell out of here? Till finally I just stopped working psych and transitioned to doing outpatient counseling at the drunk driving school. And that was partly because I wrecked my car drinking and driving, had to go to drunk driving school, and ran into my counselors at some continuing education class on the coast. And I said, I had a lot of fun there. I'd like to work there. What do I have to do? And they said, don't drink for 2 years. I'm like, hey, I'm already on it. I haven't drank since my car wreck. So anyway, that ended up being a really good transition for me. And I did that for almost 10 years because I could, once again, do weekends and I could set my own hours. So I would say I did the people that were under conservatorship, like severely mentally ill people, close to 10 years and then another 10 years, probably the two combined for about 18 years from my late teens until my mid to late 30s.
So your son is an adult.
Yeah, he's in his 50s.
At the end of that, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
And what did he do?
Well, he went to college in Louisiana. He was an athlete. completely on his own, no help from me. Like I found out he was riding his bike way far from the house and doing like these triathlon things when he was a little kid. Anyway, he ended up getting a scholarship to a school in Louisiana, Northwest Louisiana College, and he was all state Louisiana cross country. He did very well in track and cross country in high school, and continued to do distance running. After he got a degree, he had to keep changing his major because he was a very mediocre student. Both of my boys were in college. They had trouble getting C's.
Yeah.
So he finally it took him 6 years to get his degree. And he used to tell me he was either going to graduate in May or may not. But he went to work for Enterprise car rental for a while. I thought, well, that's a weird thing. You know, it just seemed very mundane. He's a smart guy. Then he went back to school and did a master's program for sports administration or something like that. That made more sense. Started living with a gal in Louisiana. They eventually moved to California, and he started working in strip clubs, which really blew my mind. I found out accidentally. His siblings and he were saying that he drove a bread truck, and I thought that was really weird. And then some things just weren't adding up, and I confronted him after he had a minor surgery, and he was at the house. And so he was kind of like under truth serum. And I was worried that he was doing pornography because there were just things that were said, obviously had some involvement in adult entertainment. And it turned out he was working at a strip club in LA. And I'm like, why did you tell me that you were driving a bread truck? He's like, well, because, you know, you always told us you didn't want to know anything about our sex life. And if we were gay, you didn't want to know. And like, okay, but I get it now.
But working at a strip club is not your sex life. That's a job.
It is. But, you know, I'm pretty puritanical. I thought I was ashamed. And I told him, I said, you know, I'm glad you're not making pornographic movies, but I'm just never going to respect that you work in a game that exploits human misery. You know, like I don't like that job, but you know, I love him. And so that he did that from 30, and he just recently stopped doing it at 50. So he ended up getting a little inheritance from his bio dad, who he never was involved with in any way. And so that made him quit working, and now he's trying to segue as his money is running out. He's trying to just do regular club stuff. You know.
I mean, the organizational skills are probably good, transferable to other stuff. So, when did you? I guess, when do you feel like you started to get politically conscientious or aware? Because a lot of
Day
people,
one.
Yeah, a lot of people, it started in like 2013. You know what I mean? And a lot of it, or maybe the 2010 period when the Tea Party started making noise. A lot of people got politically on both. Like it wasn't just right wing people who saw that. I think it was left wing people too who saw people. They didn't, and I think there's something really interesting about that period that I've never seen anybody write about. But I feel like seeing people that you disagreed with make good points about the inefficiency of government was jarring for a lot of people, and it got them involved in politics for the first time. Like a lot of left-leaning people were, I guess, excited or energetic about the fact that Obama got elected, but that wore off pretty quickly, right?
Right.
And then the Tea Party came in 2009-10 time period, and then people start talking about, they're pointing out stuff that isn't just about Obama. They weren't just attacking the Democrats. They were like, the Republicans are fucked too, right? And I think that stirred up something in a lot of people that previously had no real interest in politics. But you were around during that time. So what was your experience?
Okay, now I'm probably going to mess his name up, and maybe you have a clue. I have trouble with names or remembering names. But the CNBC guy, that I think's name was Rick Santorum,
Centelli, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, I got one right. But he went off, and I used to watch CNBC every morning, and it was very exciting to see him go off about this. And he said, what we need is a national tea party. Well, the guys from KFI radio in Los Angeles, what were their names? There's two guys. Maybe I'll think of it. But they were doing one in Fullerton. They said, they talked about it. This is the talk radio station in LA. And the radio hosts were like, oh, yeah, we'll do a tea party. We're going to do one. Come to Fullerton on this weekend.
Was one of them Steve Gregory?
No, not at that time.
Yeah,
I want to say like Mark and Brian or something like one of those kind of drive time kind of shows. And so my son Alex, who is the next youngest son, he was living in LA. He had went to school at Whittier where he played football. And one of his friends who went to Claremont were talking, and I said, I'm coming to Fullerton to a tea party. You guys want to come with? And they did. And so I was an organizer. I organized the first tea party, tax day tea party in Santa Barbara, where on April 15th, we did a really cool tea party, which is a thing that I didn't always mesh really well with the other tea party people because I'm just, I'm not like a lot of those other Republican ladies. And so.
What do you mean?
Well, I smoke weed. And there are a lot of uptighty-whitey, crab-ass, get off my lawn, lower taxes. But we had a lot in common also. And this is also, the ACA, which is known as Obamacare, was being written.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of beef there. But to get back actually to your original question, both of my parents were Republican Central Committee members. I was born into this home where Ayn Rand was just like, that was it. And my mother was just, my first book I can remember seeing my mom read when I was a little kid was The Fountainhead. We had Atlas Shrugged, prominently displayed on the bookcase. And I would hear my father, mother, all their friends were pretty, for being in TAP, they were pretty darn intellectual. And they were discussing ideas and William F. Buckley and Ayn Rand. So I was exposed to it at an early age. And my parents, besides being Central Committee, that was the olden days where get out the vote was very important. And so besides being at Republican headquarters in Bakersfield all the time, that was like my hangout. Also walking precincts, registering voters, working the fair. I was at Republican headquarters in Bakersfield when JFK was shot the year before I started kindergarten. And so politics has always been the backdrop. I think we all kind of have like whatever the scene is playing out, there's a backdrop. And for me, it was politics in general, and specifically Richard Nixon, who was a California guy. After he lost in 1960, and I don't remember that. I was maybe 3 years old when he lost against the first Kennedy race. They came back in 62, and that's
he lost in, what was it, 56 the first one, and then again in 60, right?
No, he won VP under Eisenhower.
Yeah, but
and he ran for president
in 60, yeah.
In 1960, won close. There was always the stolen election talk, and people don't give Nixon credit. He's starting to come back in favor a bit now, but everything people hate about the way Trump handled what was perceived by many to be a illegitimate election. Nixon said, I don't want to harm the country. People could say, it was like just him being a wuss or not wanting to fight. But it really wasn't, because he did the same thing when he resigned. Like, he was actually a pretty classy guy in certain ways. And I remember going to a Nixon for governor big outside gathering and kind of getting Lion Kinged. They passed me up front for Nixon to hold me up.
Did he put a thing on your forehead or anything?
No, but it was one of those moments, and I don't have it anymore, but I had a little Richard Nixon autograph. And it was like one of those little keepsakes that you value. But it was also, there was a lot of animosity in my family toward Richard Nixon at that time because Joe Shell, who was just this great oil guy in California, had the nomination for governor all like sewn up, and Nixon comes back and sore losers his way in after losing the presidency. And it really, little things can change the course of history. And Joe Shell not being governor and Nixon losing to Pat Brown. And I can remember my dad just like that whole, you won't have Richard Nixon to kick around anymore. It stayed with my folks. And then Nixon ran again in 1968. Pat Buchanan often gets credited for that victory. That's something a lot of people don't know. Once again, I'm so lucky I didn't go to school, so I'm just really sniffing stuff out on my own. There is a great book by James Rosen called The Strong Man, and it is about Attorney General Mitchell, John Mitchell. He went to prison for Watergate, but that guy, early in his legal career, he gets a job at some law firm, and they have these old railroad bond work that they had done. He transformed that into public housing. So John Mitchell's early part of his legal career was going city to city to city and selling people on government public housing. So I make the case, and Rosen makes it somewhat in the book, but a lot of my stuff is extrapolated from what James Rosen is talking about. This isn't the point of the book at all. It's just a big takeaway. It was a mind blow for me because I'm like, oh, all these years I thought it was Pat Buchanan's, doing all these smart moves as a campaign manager, when really, if you know every city council in the country, that is a huge advantage when you're running for president.
Yeah.
So anyway, you can tell this is my football. Like, I love politics, and I never left it. Like, I've always been, even as I got older and, the teen girl at the keg party, I'd always be outside with the boys arguing politics, cold nights, warm beer, sticking up for my guy kind of thing. And, that's just always been who I am. And then with my own children, walking precincts, volunteering for different candidates, working the county fair. I mean, I am so seeped in politics.
What do you think has changed in American politics since you were younger? And can you put your finger on a starting point for that change?
There have been a few big moments, obviously. Watergate was huge. It decimated the Republicans for really over a decade. That was a big deal. The social media thing cannot be
Do you think Watergate was
underestimated.
a setup, though?
Without a doubt.
I mean, that was very intentional.
Oh,
So
without
maybe
a doubt.
things haven't changed that much because they just, like the Democratic Party just tried that in 2016 as well, right?
I would say that the CIA, the FBI, whatever people like to call them, the deep state, the alphabet soup, have been involved in manipulating elections, not just in this country, but all over the world. I believe that is true. And so that part hasn't changed. But I don't know if you're a Mencken fan or not, but I love his quotes. He was pretty snarky sometimes, but really smart. And just talking about the will of the people. And I am a believer there. And that's what worked for Trump this time. Too big to rig. Because deep state, Democrats, Republican rhinos, you can do all these things, but there's a saturation point and a tipping point with the public. And whether it's gay marriage, whether it's, amnesty for illegals, the public, no matter what's going on, it really is we the people. So
yeah, they say politics is downstream from culture, and a lot of that I think is the standard that men set and accept from each other, and then through broader culture in a lot of ways affects all this stuff downstream.
100%. That's Andrew Breitbart was. He didn't make that up, but he popularized that phrase, and it really resonated with me, and it made me shift gears politically, and I started really trying to support writers who supported culture, but they had a right-wing bias, like Andrew Klavan.
Right.
And he did some great writing in the early days. Like he was a non-political person, if
Yeah.
anything, maybe lean a little left, screenwriter. But after 9/11, he had one of these wake-up calls. And he did a lot of writing about culture, and he tried to encourage the right wing. I said a lot of these kind of crab-assy Republicans don't like me, or we don't mesh all that well. Andrew Klavan was very good at giving me tools to help educate people. Don't be afraid to go to a movie because of some, blue language or a sex scene here and there. Lighten up a little bit, get involved in culture, see what's out there. And then I started doing my own events and got very involved in doing concerts, promoting concerts. And I wasn't doing right-wing, if you can even find them, right-wing musicians. But the young guys, I've always done well with young guys, and they basically are apolitical, but I could influence them just by being an example of personal responsibility.
Yeah. I think it's, I think we spend way too much time, and this is, one of the better examples of it is our new movements, but we spend way too much time talking about individual politicians or political parties and not nearly enough time trying to repair our culture and educate people and understand the Constitution and its history, why we decided to do all these things the way we did. There's an old aphorism, and Shapiro uses it in his new book, Lions and Scavengers, and I'll paraphrase. It's basically that if a conservative person is walking through the wilderness and sees a gate, they wonder what it's for. It's like, well, I should find out what this is before I do anything with it. And a liberal person would see it and be like, there's no point to this gate. I'm going to tear it down, right? There's a big divide between those two types of thinking. And I feel like the more you understand why something was done, not only do you resist the temptation to change for change's sake, which is always stupid, but you also know how to make it truly adaptable to meet the needs of modernity instead of just changing it because you feel like you need to. We do that a lot. We change up systems that just don't need it. There's a solution to certain problems that just will work, right? But if you don't understand the mechanics of the solution, there's no way for you to make it adaptable. You just change it based on a hunch and see if it works out, but that's not science.
Well, and also there's some ego involved because it's like you're stamping it, you're putting your stink on it is why you want to change it. Sometimes people alter things just so they can, say that they did this. But it's why I have been so excited about your series on what went into and the thinking that the Constitution is based on. That was my high water mark of my education. California curriculum, and I don't know that it still does this, you had to pass a Constitution test in 8th grade to go to high school.
Imagine that.
And I got 100%. I mean, you can just imagine. This is my wheelhouse, and I loved it so much.
Coming from that family, too, it probably made your parents pretty proud that you did that, I would imagine.
Well, it gave us something to talk about besides football, and both of my parents were, my mother was a writer,
UCLA
a newspaper
fans?
person. Huh?
They were UCLA fans or USC or
Oh,
what?
USC. Yeah.
Makes sense.
It was so fun. Every year they would go to the Ohio State USC game, which was on New Year's, Rose Bowl stuff a lot of times.
115,000 people, give or take, show up to that thing. I mean, it's 105, but then there's 10,000 people just walking around the whole time.
Right.
I mean, that was, stadiums weren't like that back in the day. That was the biggest one. I think that's still the biggest one that exists, is it not?
It may be.
Like, technically, Penn State sells 112 to 115, but they do it intentionally with standing room. I think Rose Bowl is the biggest. I think it's the largest capacity stadium that exists, I think.
Well,
maybe, I don't know.
Very big deal for my parents. They always went to the Rose Bowl. They always went to Ohio State. They would go fly back to Ohio. And I still have all the funny buttons that they used to come home, saying that Khomeini went to Ohio State. Just mixing the politics with the football.
Yeah. That shit didn't start with the Saturday NCAA football shows in modern times where they have all the funny signs that they hold up and shit like that. No, that's been going on for like 100 years.
And it was fun. And that's like, I don't watch football now. And I've always enjoyed football more watching when I knew somebody or I was supporting my local college or high school kind of thing. But I watched, definitely would have Super Bowl parties every year when we were young marrieds. But I can't even watch a pro game. Kind of when they first started doing the breast cancer stuff with the pink shoes. I like whatever's going on to be related to football.
Yeah.
So anyway, kind of got off track there on the football stuff, but it's really important to understand what makes our country exceptional. And when you talk about how the left and right see things differently, I've had people accuse me that this is part of my privilege. Oh yeah, we're an exceptional country because of the white people, the slavery. And it's like, no, we are exceptional because we took some very important principles from different eras throughout recorded history. And then we added these safeguards to them. And America is a miracle in the sense that it is the first country that really is by the people with consent of the people being governed. And I mean, I get goose pimples talking about it. Am I silly? Like, it's just one of the things that makes me excited.
Yeah.
And I love when people start having interest. And like talking about the Tea Party reaction from both sides, I feel like that we're maybe on the cusp. I don't know if it's actually happening, but it seems like more people are politically engaged, even though they are polarized right now. And if you're paying attention, the road is going to lead to the stuff that you're writing about. And I have forgotten more than I knew about the Constitution, and going back and reviewing. Like, I can't even name the 10 amendments right now, if you ask me to. I can hit the biggies, you know, the top 4 or 5 or 6 maybe. But it's really good to revisit that and understand. You made a point about the supremacy clause, you know, and so it sends me back to read it, try and argue it, because that's part of my duty. You know, I have a jury in my brain, and I'm not a fangirl about anything. Like, I like to know as much about something as I can, and I don't like to be super opinionated. I know I seem like I'm really opinionated, but it's only after really hearing things out on both sides.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you should talk as if you know and listen as if you don't. That's a good maxim that I've learned through the years. And yeah, I mean, just anytime these movements happen, or these junctures, or whatever you want to call it, there's always a big power and entertainment vacuum that happens, right? And the Tea Party was an example. This latest dust up has been an example. But people will latch on to whatever is available closest to their affinity group, right? Typically, which is where you get all the primed conspiratorial thinking. But it's an indictment of our system and how we've completely failed kids to teach them just the fucking basics. We teach them basic arithmetic because it's necessary, right? But we haven't taught them basic civics, which is, I mean, you can get through your life in 2026 without knowing arithmetic, but without knowing what's going on politically, I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean,
I do.
Be quite a bit more difficult these days, right?
Very silly watching. And it's propaganda. You know, you've got to see through the propaganda on both sides. But all these videos of teachers teaching kids to chant and make signs, anti-ICE. And some of that is going on. You know, they had some sort of altercation. Where was it? Close to your Buda. There was a person arrested for assaulting a student, but it looked a bit like some sort of melee on video. And that's the other thing, these cell phones.
You're talking about this past weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. That's actually right down the street from my house.
Yeah. And it's kind of like those guys should have been in civics class, and that guy probably didn't have civics.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. We don't know, because
what I heard was some knucklehead stopped on the side of the road to try to talk shit to him, and they just wail. Some girl got in his face. He pushed her down on the ground, and then they just started wailing on him. Which, okay. Yeah,
stupid.
Yeah, the whole thing is dumb. What are you doing there? What are they doing there? What are you doing there? What was your big plan there? To go yell at a bunch of teenagers who don't know what the fuck they're talking about anyways? That's what is a weird thing for an adult man to do.
It makes
to be
no
honest.
sense.
Yeah.
What's the end game? I had a fight break out Monday night right next to me. Went straight to the floor. And it was at Kill Tony. We waited in this bar next door called Shakespeare's. And it was the first fight that I've seen in the 3 years that we've been doing Kill Tony signups. But a couple of idiots started fighting. And I just, it's crowded, but I just pulled back. I don't want to be a part of that. But everybody else whipped out their phones. And then a gal that I know tried to get up in the face after some employees pulled these guys apart. A girl, with pink hair and a nose ring, got her fingers up in the guy's face. And it made me really not respect her. Not that I had a tremendous respect already, but we had a relationship. And I made a note to self, stay away from her. Because that's just really bad judgment. And, there comes a certain point, I hope, in everybody's life where you start using solid judgment and you avoid these knucklehead moments.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly. It's just like, what are you, if you're in a vehicle moving in a direction, then it takes a lot to stop you. You know what I mean? But if you're just standing there off balance, anything can knock you out of your way. And I think that's a good metaphor for just what purpose does for your life, more generally speaking. You know what I mean? If you're this old saying, if you're heading nowhere, you'll get there. And we've taught people to abdicate their responsibilities, to put down the weight, because it's too heavy and life sucks. Life's too hard. Like, I don't know, people have been doing it for a couple million years, but for you, it's too hard all of a sudden, right? Which is a very odd thing, but people seem to believe it. And we've seen these like massive cultural shifts around this complete lack of responsibility. And it's a lot of it is tied up in neo-Marxism and postmodernism. I mean, I wish Ayn Rand would have been around to write more about the neo-Marxists, to be honest, because she would have had some pretty interesting things to say about it. But it's developed in a way that's completely retarded, frankly, right? So you mentioned earlier you being puritanical, which was more common on the right than it was on the left for a long time. Not so much anymore necessarily, right? People have to a large degree put some of that stuff away. Some of it's coming back, but there's been a pretty significant shift into what I can only call being anti-woman on the American left in the last 15 years, maybe 20, right? They want to take away women's spaces. They want to diffuse what the definition of woman even means.
Well, women were very useful to the neo-Marxist movement until they're not. And that's one thing I learned early on from my father. Yeah, these are useful idiots, and they're going to be the first ones lined up and shot, when the Bolsheviks take power, whatever. I'm kind of just paraphrasing. My father was a little more articulate than me. But, women, we want birth control. And, the divorce thing, like when I was a kid, you had to sue for divorce. And yet it was a contract, and you had to have grounds. So if you could prove that the other spouse was having sex, committing adultery, then the person who was not the adulterer got the house, got, alimony, all this. That no-fault divorce was not a good thing. And I know people sell it as a good thing. But staying married is good. Like, nobody hates my husband more than I do. And he hates me. But you know what? We work it out, because we would hate anyone we were married to.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, we love each other, but you get my point.
Yeah.
You go through some rocky times, but you made this agreement. You had children together. You stick it out. You make it work. And so the divorce, birth control, I don't think birth control is talked about enough. All these hormones, that just massive amounts of hormones that women are taking that simulate pregnancy, and how that affects who they're attracted to, and how it affects our groundwater. And I mean, birth control has had a bigger impact. And then also Title IX. I was so against Title IX. My formerly young men friends who are now middle-aged men are like, how did you know this stuff? But I could just see it coming with Title IX. I don't want women to have equality with men. And you can get into the equality versus equity kind of argument. But I knew it was going to end badly, and I didn't like that they didn't count girl stuff as sports. Like, I thought Title IX was dumb from the get-go. But then cheerleading wasn't counted, dancing. So you eliminated all these men's sports, and now what have you got? Women going, it's no fair. The boys, it's like, well, you wanted equal treatment. Now you're getting it good and hard. Go cry to somebody else. Like, and that's mean. I have a very mean mouth.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. You know, sometimes reality is a bit mean. And then there's also the, it's very similar, and it's you can see it historically with these relationships with caustic groups like the Red Green Alliance, for example, right? This alliance, the Red Green Alliance is either communist or postmodernist plus Muslim. And it's been a thing that's happened a number of times, and it's always worked out very poorly for the leftist. You know what I mean? They align themselves with this perceived oppressed group that is psychopathic and violent. And it's happening all over again, right? And the left, which was supposed to be the protector of women for a long time, at least that was part of their propaganda, is just like, hey, you know those guys that don't think women are people and will rape and kill them? Let's bring those guys in. And those are our new allies. We've seen this all before and how it ends. And it's very odd. This is another reason that I'm just begging people to read fucking history, because you can't miss this stuff. If you just have even a cursory knowledge of what happens when leftists and Muslims get together, you can't miss it. You can see it coming from a mile away. And it's not even a controversial thing to say. The Iranian Revolution would not have happened without the leftist support, without the communists there. And what happened immediately? They killed 30 to 60,000 of them, and 600,000 got ejected from the country. They are not your friend, never will be. But it's been widely adopted. So when I see the left, which for a long time defined itself as the party of women and still carries most of the female vote, 60 to 70%, depending on the election, are clearly anti-woman, yet people still vote for it. But it's like, it's one of the things that makes me tear my hair out, even more than the black community's insistence on voting Democrat, because that's more of a cultural thing. You know, that's a lot harder to interrupt than it is for women, especially white women who live with white men who predominantly vote conservatively, right? And you can see all the evidence that you, as the white woman, you are the target. You're the target because of your empathy, and you're the target afterwards because you're not physically strong enough to stop me from dominating you out of the way once I've gotten what I need from you. I just don't understand how this is not very obvious to people.
That's mean.
Yeah.
Like when I try and have this talk with other women, and I, multi-gen Californian, and I've been around a lot. I have had more friends on the left than right because of music, because of weed, whatever. Yeah.
My friends historically have been, if I had to, if I made a roster of the people that I talk to the most, it's more on the left than the right, for sure, for the same reasons, music and drugs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's be real.
And the guys, getting back to the young kind of blank slate guys, are way more into going back and forth. And I have argued with guys so many times, and most of them stayed left of the ones that already had a bias, but the ones that got interested as they got older in developing a philosophy started becoming more right. But the girls, that you reach a certain point in the debate and they go to fighting like a girl. You hurt my feelings. And, I've talked about, talking about rape with women. Women will try to say that, man bad, girl victimless, but you don't go to certain places alone with a guy. That's how I got pregnant at 15. You need to take some responsibility for your behavior. And even if a guy acts poorly, there's still some things I could have done differently. And there are a lot of gals that if you say that to, particularly left-leaning gals, I think most conservative married women probably would be more likely to agree with me. I'm not saying that you're the rapist or you made the rape happen, but you have a responsibility. And being a victim is such a loser's position to be in. And that was one thing, we were the victors. I was raised by people that won World War II. It's a great time to grow up and be a baby boomer. And my life had nothing but ascent, really, probably until 9/11 and then Obama. And then, things have been going downhill. But I know things will be good again. I'm very optimistic. Like you say, we know how it's going to play out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty white-pilled, to be honest, because it only takes not even a plurality, certainly not a majority. It just takes a decent amount of people who understand the basics of this stuff, and you become a bulwark against retarded nonsense. I mean, it really, and there's never been anything close to a majority of Americans or any other group that have truly understood things. It's always a small group of people, and then the small group of people organize their facts and they organize their talking points and they organize their responses to stupid bullshit, and they just are call it courageous enough, but really it's just commonsensical enough to, when somebody says some dumb shit, you're like, no, actually, and don't be a dick. Just like, this is the thing. What you're saying is crazy. You know what I mean? Here's the actual information. Take that for what you want. If enough people do that, then it interrupts the supply chain of circulating misinformation. You know what I mean? You don't have to censor people. All you got to do is say, no, man, that's dumb. You know what I mean?
That's what's so cool about Elon Musk buying X, Twitter. I call it X now. I was off Twitter for the whole time from January 6th until the day after Trump won. And so I went from constantly being in trouble on Twitter those last few years to having an account where I can say whatever I want, except for the word tranny, which kind of blows my mind.
Yeah,
like
weird.
that's an automatic whatever, you get a note saying this
Yeah.
post isn't visible because you did something hateful. But outside of that, I don't know Elon Musk. I don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy, but I like what he's doing. I like what he's promoting, and without X being able to do what you just pointed out, just some people pushing back on some other people's BS. It just made all the difference in the world as far as people rethinking some things. And I understand what you're saying about culturally, it's a different animal when you talk about the black population in America. But I have seen a shift. And
There's
it's small,
definitely a shift, yeah.
but it's meaningful. It's mainly black men. And one place I've got to see it up close and personal is through the Kill Tony sign-up people, the regulars. And Tony, because of his Netflix deal, has a finger on the pulse of how people are reacting to his show now. Because YouTube, great, you get millions of views. But Netflix is completely different. It's huge. It's a huge production. When it's a Netflix show, it doesn't even look like Kill Tony anymore. But Tony has been giving out a lot of golden tickets, but a lot to black comedians. And he always, one of the first times I was in the alley for signups, I commented to another comedian that was signing up, like, wow, this reminds me of football or sports. When you look here, old lady, Mexican, young white veteran, young white weird earlobe guy, all different kinds of people. And it's like really a natural way of doing things without having DEI or HR tell you how to do things. You just do something that appeals to a wide range of people. And so it does remind me of sports. And the guy said, yeah, it does look like sports. There are a lot of black people here. So I don't know if he got my point, but there are a lot of black comedians in Austin right now.
Yeah.
And they are just, because it's the way to be, pro freedom of speech. Even when we don't agree, like I'm friends with people who are very pro BLM back when that was happening a few years ago, and have conversations where they respect the J6 thing for different reasons, and we still have some, a wide divide. But there are people like Cam Patterson, when he said he was going to vote for Donald Trump, that was kind of a big moment. Then he came on the next week and said, "Oh, my mom called me and she said, you do not vote for that man." But it's black men that want their masculinity back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't mean to go off on that tangent, but it's one of the interesting things about comedy to me, and where it all overlaps with X, with freedom of speech, with Austin being the epicenter for that right now. I feel like I have a real knack for being in the most interesting place available at
Like
any
Forrest
given
Gump.
time. I have a cousin that's a writer, and he said, "You are Forrest Gump."
Yeah. How did you end up in the Capitol?
Well, President Trump, I don't remember what particular speech or if it was a Twitter post or what it was, but he called for all of his supporters to go January 6th to support him. And so I was booking my ticket on Priceline. My husband almost never goes anywhere with me. And I said, "You want to go, honey?" And he was a nothing when he met me. He had no political interest in anything. But over the years, he has become conservative. And so he's like, "Yeah, sure." So we just end up booking a trip. And then 3 of our friends from LA also, and we all get hotel rooms in the same place. And we're going to go to these speeches. We RSVP'd for a permitted event at the Capitol. So when we hey, let's go to the speech afterward, Trump is saying, walk down to the Capitol. My husband and I split off from our 3 friends because I had to go pee. Mm-hmm. And our hotel was on the way. And so I stopped and peed there, and that put us on the backside of the Capitol, which is the east side, I guess you would call it. And it was just a whole different look than what you're seeing in the videos of all the violence. Saw almost zero violence, and the only violence I really saw was pounding on doors and windows by young men that were clearly, in my opinion, Antifa. And the other Trump people there, we were going, "Yeah, those guys aren't with us." And they literally had on those black helmets with white tape that said Trump across these black-looking Antifa helmets. They had on, you would probably know what this is, but it's what I'm calling a flak jacket, but a very military-looking vest. They had actual tear gas masks like you would see at an Army surplus store. They were wearing boots. It just, they looked like they were there to make trouble. And they were banging on doors and windows, and we just stayed back. And then the magnetic doors opened, and they all filed in. Mm-hmm. And then a few minutes later, the people that I call the velvet rope people, but like the Adam Johnsons, even though I didn't see him, the lectern guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just had him on the show the other night, actually.
Oh, okay.
He's running for county commissioner.
Yes, in Florida.
Yeah, and he drove up. He's like 45 minutes or so south of Tampa, so he drove up and did the live show with us the other day. It was fun.
How did
He's
I
a good
miss
dude.
that?
I don't know. It just came out Sunday,
Okay.
I guess. I don't know.
Now, Sunday, I was in a coma.
Oh, yeah? From what?
Well, I deliberately, I was a self-induced coma because I wanted to really sleep it up, because it is so hard driving from Canyon Lake into Austin and being there till 11 to 12 at night and driving home. So I was really trying to sleep my head off. And I just, I also know I was in bed most of that day, and my YouTube isn't working in my granny flat. All my other streaming stuff does, and I think it's a signal deal, because I'm on Wi-Fi from the main house. I've told you my husband lives about 70 feet away from me, and he's got the good Wi-Fi. So that's why I wasn't watching YouTube. I haven't watched YouTube much this week. I've been watching on my phone or my iPad when I do. But when I'm in bed, I love watching TV I don't like the small screen. I'm an old person. I'm kind of blind, kind of deaf. Like the big closed captions on.
Yeah.
But I'll have to go back and look for that, because I met Adam at a demolition ranch. Is that what it is?
Yeah,
The
the range day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first time I met him, and then we started following each other on X, which I have an Instagram account, because when I first got up on Kill Tony, everybody said, "Oh, you've got to have Instagram." And so I started an account, but I don't use it, and I need to take it down, because really you see how much I'm on X. I live on X. No matter what I'm doing, I got X open next to me. I love it.
Yeah, there's a lot of good conversations on there these days.
Yeah, and Adam is really funny. I tell him he should come sign up for a minute. He's got a great sense of humor, and he was one of the people that endured a lot early on, and he took a plea early and did 4 months, I think. I think that's how long he was actually, or maybe he got 4 months and did 2, but he did months in jail. But anyway, people like him were coming out the doors, and these were not rioters. These were like nice people, husband and wife. They look like Trump supporters. And so my husband, who almost never goes anywhere, who had never been to the Capitol, was so excited. He's a very nice man and very friendly. And he was just greeting everybody. What was it like in there? What'd you see? How was it? And everybody's like, oh, it was great. Yeah, we just went through Statuary Hall. And so I said, do you want to go in, honey? Because other people were going in and the police were allowing it. And so we asked, there's a gaggle of police officers at the door, and we asked, is it all right? And I don't remember this. I would really like the badge cam footage of me. I never got to see it. Discovery was a nightmare.
It's got to be out there somewhere, right? Didn't they release all that stuff eventually?
They released a lot of it.
Like 45,000 hours or some shit? Or
yeah,
whatever.
Like a paper dump. You know? Yeah, it was one of those things.
Yeah.
And my attorney had to get some kind of special clearance to see our discovery from the prosecutors, and it was going to cost us a lot of money. I mean, it's expensive to pay attorneys, and just having him like go through my phone was one of the biggest costs of having an attorney. But, you know, he has to know what's out there. And we made a decision not to pay our attorney to go through all the discovery. He couldn't keep it anyway of the stuff, the badge cam stuff. Most of that has not been released, or a lot of it hasn't. I've seen one video of me that Julie Kelly posted that I didn't know it was a video of me. I had no contact with anybody regarding J6 from January 6th until about a year and a half to 2, I guess maybe 23 was maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? You guys didn't like
no
get together or at least talk on the internet? I guess you couldn't talk on Twitter because everybody got kicked off, right?
Right. And so, and we were, I feel like such a pussy, but we were scared. Like we saw people like Adam Johnson doing time. I hadn't met Adam yet at that point, but I knew that there was a real chance that we could go to jail for anywhere from 1 to 22 years. And so I wanted to fight it, but and they didn't arrest us right away. The FBI came to our house right away, but they didn't arrest us right away. They waited until December of 23 to arrest us, which was perfectly timed because as Burl Howe, who is like Jeb Boasberg with tits.
Yeah.
She's a famously, anti-Trump judge. She was our judge, and she said she was not putting us in jail so she could give us the longest possible supervised probation because she wanted to keep me out of as many election cycles as possible. And I was currently running for re-election in my hometown. And anyway, what she did was election interference. It was wrong. And I did something so, like, it just still blows my mind that the first time I did not vote in an election was the last election in Texas. It would have been my first election to vote in. And I didn't understand. Almost nothing was on the ballot, no primaries. And I wasn't doing it anything to do with Burl Howe. But afterward, and I'm just, ruminating about, wow, I really didn't vote. It's weird for me. It's weird for me to not vote. And I thought, don't give her what she wants. You should have voted even if you didn't know anything about what was on the ballot. Just to not let her win that one. So I know we've got elections coming up in Texas, and I've really been trying to get as educated as I can, even though it's been a lifetime of, California politics or national. And so it's interesting to me. My rep is Chip Roy, and he's running for Attorney General. And then Herrera is our next door neighbor congressional district, and I would like to go canvass.
Well, Mark Teixeira's running in Chip Roy's district.
Okay.
We're in Chip Roy's district here too. Mark Teixeira, the former baseball player. who's always been a big Trump guy since Trump ran the first time. Actually, he's voted for Trump the whole time.
Well, that's good to know because
Yeah.
I get the ads in my feed, but John Cornyn is claiming to be a big Trump guy. So, I'm not from here.
No,
I
Mark
don't know
Teixeira.
people.
Mark Teixeira was campaigned for Trump back in 2015 and 16.
Yeah, back when it was,
Yeah, not
you're putting
popular.
yourself out there.
Yeah.
Well, it also wasn't popular in the after the J6 stuff, and I never left Trump. And some family members, I'm not even going to name names, but they're like, "Mom, time to move on." Vivek or DeSantis, Trump's done. He's old. He's got so much baggage. I'm like, no. When you get cheated, you get first right of refusal. And as long as he wants to fight, I'm staying with Trump.
Yeah.
And so I never abandoned my pro-Trump stuff. And I thought, like I told you, I think was Trump part of the setup? Because that's where I was going with this. We get invited in, and why I want to see the badge cam. I don't remember exactly. My memory of it is it like okay if we go in? Yeah, sure. And I just kind of remember a gesture.
Well, you saw Jake Chansley. They were escorting him around.
Right.
At any point, they could have said, like, all the cop would have had to have said was, you have to leave, and now he's trespassing. Because he came through an open door. He didn't force his way in. He came through an open door. Somebody that's a representative of the building or law enforcement says you have to leave, that only then does it become the crime of trespassing, right? That's how the law works.
Yes, and what is funny, part of the dishonest things in my statement of facts and my husband's was that despite being told repeatedly to leave, not true. I was hit before I was asked to leave. I was never asked to leave.
Yeah.
And, we were trapped in there. We got in there, and there was plenty of room, and we were talking to other Trump people.
Which that makes sense to me, to be honest, because it's such a chaotic situation. You're not going to go individual say, hey, you got to leave. Hey, you got to leave. Or even make an announcement if there's already stuff going on. But also when it comes time to prosecute anything, you have to take that into consideration as well. The scene was chaotic. You didn't have the opportunity to actually trespass people, which is what it's called. So then you can't just go charge them with the crime that they didn't technically commit.
We were given no notice.
Yeah.
And something that a lot of people that haven't been to the Capitol or aren't really, and this is the thing, it wasn't that they couldn't and it was chaotic. I've been to enough keg parties where it's, everyone leave now or you will be arrested. They could do that. And they claimed in the statement of facts that happened, and it didn't happen. And there's no sound on the closed circuit TV stuff. But we are very compliant people. Like, I'm a little racier. I told you, drunk driving, pregnant kind of stuff. My husband is an angel. No speeding ticket, car wreck, anything. He's a very, just a law-abiding good guy. And we would never have been in there. It sounds corny and unbelievable now, but this was a building that is normally open. We entered at 3:02 p.m. I think it was on a Wednesday. And we had permission to be there. And so once the cops flooded and then started hitting, gassing, all this, and then saying they were trying to get us to respond. And, I told Jordan Peterson when I was on Kill Tony when he was a guest that this is me rioting. Like, I was just protecting my head and trying to get out of there. As soon as I realized we had walked into a trap, my husband was probably 50 feet or something, 30 feet from me. But it was so full of tear gas or whatever gas they were using at that point, I had trouble finding him. And then it was so packed in the rotunda. And we asked I call them the nice police. The Capitol Police were mainly black officers, and they had a little different color uniform, and they were being very friendly. The DC Metro were unfriendly. It was more,
They started like raining down shit and firing pepper balls and rubber bullets at people, but like before anybody even got to the building.
Right. They were trying to provoke something. Wow. We still don't know who built the gallows, but I didn't see any of that stuff in the front. It was just like the weird thing with the people going in the door that looked kind of Antifa-y, but I had no idea. And then when we were walking out, like finally leaving, it's a slow walk out. I stop at an open mic, lead the crowd in the Pledge of Allegiance. And part of the evidence against me was a clearly altered tape of me saying I was trying to conceal where I was from. because you could see where the tape was spliced or the video was spliced. I don't know how you do it video editing wise, but you can see where there's a not smooth part, and it was to put me next to a guy. This is my theory. I'm doing this. My name is Karen Jones. I'm from Santa Ynez. I didn't think I'd be gassed or have police do this to me. I'd like you to all, say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. It was maybe 20 seconds that went on. In the video that they used and put in a big box, they all use still pictures in their evidence, not the video.
Yeah.
They've got one of my husband flipping a bird. He's not. He's got a goofy finger and he's scrolling, but it looks like a bird. But this one of me saying, my name is Karen Jones. It's right. And I'm from Santa Ynez. It cuts there. It says, my name is Karen Jones and I'm from Calabasas. And it said, she's trying to say she's from Calabasas. And they put me next to a guy I didn't see. Like the guy that talked before me on my video, because I've got my husband videotaped me doing this. There's a guy going, a woman was just shot. She bled out in front of me. It was later we found out it was Ashley Babbitt. But this guy was clearly upset, or he was a Fed trying to get something going. We don't know. That guy was talking before me in my video. In the government video of still pictures and a video that was circulated widely on social media in my hometown and by local news, has a guy going, we breached the police lines, we took the Capitol, and he's wearing a Trump flag, and he's dressed almost as silly as the shaman, anon guy you mentioned, Jake Chansley. But they put a really goofy looking guy in the video next to me to make it look like I was part of that scene. And the thing is, you didn't have to do that. And they made a very big deal out of, we knowingly went in knowing that Mike Pence was there. And that's because
how do you prove that?
You don't have to. You just show people going to prison for 22 years.
No, man, but like in the court of law, how do you prove that you or your husband or any of these other people knew that Mike Pence was there specifically?
And we didn't. He wasn't there. He had left already.
Yeah, he was in the other building. So I don't understand that. Anyways.
But it was just, but you didn't have to prove anything because you had an all DC jury who they work, everybody is dependent on the machine there. And you, not just in J6 cases, but even slightly worse than usual, you had 100% conviction rate. So, I wanted to fight it, but the more I could see, I went ahead and took a deal. But I wanted to have my day in court, but I saw I wouldn't have a day in court watching what happened to everyone else. They also, first thing they asked me about when the FBI came to my house, and I didn't talk to them. I didn't even open my gate to them. They wanted to know if I had seen explosives being planted at the RNC and DNC. And I read other arrest warrants or statements, and that was a very common approach question from the FBI. So that bomb thing is, I think that's all part of the plan. It's all this stuff about we're not going to let Trump take, office or get away with exposing. I say the election was stolen. That was the insurrection. J6 was the cover-up. And one of the more interesting things to me, I was talking with a reporter last night, texting back and forth, and he had never heard of the Dead Voter Society. But I got put in a group called the Dead Voter Society by the guy that started it. Really interesting guy named Charles C. Johnson, and he's the one that's in jail right now.
Well, he got out and then he's going right back in because he's a fucking lunatic.
He is, but I'm telling you, he was once a sweet, honest, earnest young man who worked for Breitbart, and that's when I met him.
And he's the guy, just for context's sake, that's listed as the confidential human source that made all this shit up about Trump.
Right.
That the FBI looked at. The FBI under Biden looked at it and they're like, nah, this is not real. Come on, man.
It's so crazy how hard he flipped. And those of us that knew him, when it was first happening, we wondered if it was money or fear. Because in the first Trump administration, he was on the transition team because he's just such a genius. He's very good at vetting people. He can find anything. And so I think he was bitter that he didn't get an administration job. But I was friends with him through the whole, 2016, right up until, he was reaching out to me all the way toward getting arrested. And I stopped answering him because he did some real bullshit things to my family where he wrote fake stories. He would ask me questions, and I'm a friend. It's like, isn't your son Mormon or Jewish or something? I can't remember which question was first. I'm like, no. He was baptized a Mormon, but he hasn't been in the church for years, ever, really. He just was baptized Mormon because he wanted to join a church, and they all liked him. It was kind of cute. But he married a Jewish gal. Well, Charles started saying, you've got to have Alex call me. He's in danger. And he told me that my ex-daughter-in-law's cousin was in the Mossad, and she was, they had a hit out on Alex. All this crazy stuff. And I was not scared for a second because I'd already seen Charles like spiraling out of control. He had a site called Got News, and he was getting more and more desperate to get stories. I used to help him do research in the early days when I knew him.
Yeah.
Like the Elizabeth O'Baggy story in Syria and just stuff. It was fun. It was fun helping him. But he got too desperate for news. But at my house, I witnessed him being hounded, and in D.C., by the Senate Judiciary that was trying to get him to testify against Trump, and he wouldn't do it. So he really got caught. He had other problems. He's always been neuroatypical. But I had true love of Charles, and we had a real relationship. And so the election happened. I said, Charles, I wrote to my friend who works for Adam Carolla. I wrote to Charles. I wrote to everybody I could think of that had any kind of voice or connection. Like, this election was stolen. And Charles came to my house, and he just blip, blip, blip with his thumbs. He goes, there, you're in the Dead Poets Society, or the Dead Voters Society now. And so I was assigned to help with congregant living, help a statistician from Claremont. So in this group, maximum size it ever got to was 46 people. But I will name dead people that are no longer with us, but I don't think people want to be outed as being part of a signal group.
Yeah.
But they were very high-profile people, and I can show you. I would show you the list. But Scott Adams was in it, and Bernard Carrick. That gives you an idea of the diversity and the level of participation in it. And they were all invited in and accepted the invitation to the group from Charles Johnson. Like, he still had a good reputation into the election. And I thought he was trying to help me with J6. He was trying to prove I was innocent. Now I believe he took all the photos that I forwarded to him and helped identify people in the crowd, because he started a Substack that was just 180 degrees from anything he had ever believed in before.
A lot of people's brains got broken over the last 10 years or so.
I agree.
I mean, with a lot of weird shit. And I think that's like, a lot of people did get involved in politics, but they don't understand it. They don't understand the underlying ideology of American constitutionalism. So it's like drinking through a fire hose. There's just something new every day, and they have no idea what they're looking at, but they can't look away. I think it's fucking people's brains up.
Well, yeah, because you've got smartphones, social media. COVID could only happen. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you do. Follow some of the new revelations about COVID. And I never fell for it because, once again, the good thing about being old and paying attention is I lived through AIDS. I was working at a county hospital then, before it was even AIDS, when it was gay-related immunity disorder.
Yeah.
And we were scared because I personally knew several healthy young men who died. I didn't see any dead bodies with COVID. I was on tour with Kinky Friedman in Southern California when they did the shutdown.
Yeah.
And I kept telling the people with us, they're not going to do it. There's no dead bodies. We're in LA.
Yeah.
Look, there's homeless people. We're the dead people.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I understood the fear. I understood my children with children being afraid. And so I respected that. I wasn't going to take a vaccine. None of my children or grandchildren did. But Kinky wanted to get the vaccine, and he was one of the, he got to the front of the line because of his age and his connections. And I drove him to get the vaccine. I didn't try and talk him out of it. It's just like, I'm not getting it, but,
Yeah, we got on arguments on both sides of that. One famously when Scaramucci tried to call us Chinese assets because we refused to force our employees to do shit. But 40% of our employees did. We don't give a fuck. What do I care? Do what you want, dude. I just don't. I mean, yeah, I think all this stuff is, it's been fucking people's brains up, but you're right. There is a cure for it, and that's just to know what the hell's going on. Because then people can't trick you. That's it. You just got to know how. You don't even have to know everything. You just have to know enough to figure out how the game works, what the history of it is, the tactics and whatnot, and you can sniff that shit out immediately, right? I mean, and you can see it. That's why I write the stuff that I do. It's not. You're not going to get a PhD reading it, but you'll be able to sniff stuff out pretty easily. I think if you read all this stuff and take in the historical context. It's kind of like a anti-bullshit primer. That's what
I think it's great. And I was, I'm not a lawyer, but I was the top of my 8th grade class, which did have the highest IQ in the country.
Yeah, that's what they say, yeah.
For a small school. Although I think small schools actually would have an advantage there.
Yeah, probably classroom size and everything.
Yeah, less people. You don't need that many smart people.
Yeah. Well, we got to get out of here. I got to go do a show about football, actually.
Same
since
thing.
You mentioned, yeah. Tell everybody what you're up to now, where they can find you and follow you and all that stuff. And if you have any advice for people out there, give them that as well, from somebody that's been in the game for a long time.
Well, you can find me at Granny Snakebite. My grandkids call me Grandma Snakebite, and Kinky's Ranch, I was Granny or Granny Snakebite. But I'm on X. If you see me on Instagram and follow me or try to contact me, I'm not being a snob. I'm very accessible on X at Granny Snakebite, Karen Jones at Granny Snakebite. Still signing up for Kill Tony every Monday. And I am the senior correspondent for the Kill Tony arena shows for Joke World. And so I've been trying to get out and do more comedy. I'm living out in the sticks, but I just got to do it. And I really love it. It's an opportunity for me to speak my mind about things that people don't know, the things you're saying people should get educated about. I let people know what it was like back in the day and some of their thinking that may be flawed. But, rational thought. It was hard. I wanted to read Atlas Shrugged so hard. Like, I really wanted to read that book. And I just couldn't until I got books on tape and listened and read along, because it's such a slog. But rational thought, be purpose-driven. I'm doing a long game right now because I didn't mean for any of this. I've just been, playing it as it comes at me. But I've got this house in California that's pre-existing, non-conforming little 125-year-old cabin in downtown
cool.
Santa Ynez. It's super cool. But I'll never live there again. My husband lived there without me for 3 years during the J6 stuff. And, it's time to move on. But I'm going to make that a comedy club.
Can't unring that bell, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it's just too much has happened. And because we live at a 4-way stop in a very high-profile town, that everybody, I didn't even need to be doxxed.
Yeah.
And so I got a lot of attention that I didn't want. And it's not like I'm not going to be there for bitter reasons. I want to have a comedy club there. And so I'll still be there, but I don't think I will ever live in that house again. So that's something that I would like to see happen in the next year. First thing was getting my husband out of the house. Because, you cannot let the old man in, as Clint Eastwood says. I don't let the old lady in.
Yeah.
But nobody needs a crab ass shaking their fist at stuff when you're trying to be funny.
Yep.
My husband can be funny, but he doesn't share most of my vision.
Yeah, I mean, you go pretty wild.
Yeah, I
which
do.
is good.
Opposites attract.
Yeah.
But I like what you say about having a purpose, and I always have a purpose. I'm very service oriented. And I recommend other people do that. Like if you're stuck in your life, go volunteer somewhere. Do something, build something. But don't just sit there and scroll.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. Thanks for coming today. This is long overdue. So I'm glad we had a chance to sit down and discuss. You have led a very interesting life.
Oh, and it's not over yet, Dan. I'll tell you something that I have fantasies about. I really want you, and I know this isn't your interest, but I want you to take your Constitution series on the road a bit and talk to young men. And I think that, just even where I'm from on the coast of California, there's a bit of a revival in, I'm not a Christian personally, but my two of my three children are Christian. And I love Jesus, I'm into it. But anyway, there are all these young people that are seeking. It may not be Jesus. It may be a purpose. It may be an understanding of how we got here. But I just don't want your work to be for old ladies that forgot most of what they learned and revisiting it. So
Yeah.
I hope you take it, and I think you would be a very compelling speaker.
We're working on a book now, me and a buddy, that I've been working on for a while, but he's helping me turn it into something that he thinks he's a major author, and it's something he thinks will be a lot more commercially appealing. So it'll get more people that aren't necessarily nerds to read it.
Going to put like a naked picture on the cover?
I might, yeah, maybe of me or maybe somebody else. It's got a lot more narrative in it about my life and intersections and things like that. So we're working on that now, and the plan is 100% to do a full year of speaking after that.
Right.
All over the country.
No, go on a book tour.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
A final thing about me that probably everyone now knows, I am a very long goodbyer.
There we go.
Goodbye.
Thank you for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
We'll
Thank
do it
you.
again sometime soon. And thank you all for listening. This has been Citizen.